So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Storyteller webinar. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Hey Jay, I'm good. Thanks very much for having me.
Have you let the dog in?
I have let the dog in,
Good
and
man.
it's more or less sleeping already.
Excellent. Excellent. Stephen, it's great to have you back. As I mentioned earlier, I think this is your third time with us now. So again, back by top popular demand. They might have guessed that you have a little bit of an accent. I'm guessing I know what it is. It's Northern Ireland. So you're joining us from across the pond. So thank you for giving up your time again, Stephen. Before we get into the presentation, let's just have a quick chat for those of people that are new to us. Just tell us a little bit about your story into photography and the accomplished wedding and portrait photographer that you are today, mate.
Okay, yes. So I have been a photographer for a full-time photographer since 2012. I would say I have had an interest in photography for probably 10 years now. The reason why I got into photography was a bit strange, really. I spent the first 11 years after I left school working in a factory as a coach builder, and it was the sort of job where I wasn't really satisfied or fully happy, but also that I had a quite a mad sort of partying lifestyle, which I grew to kind of want to get away from as such. So my journey into photography happened really because I thought I need to get a hobby that will take me away being out all again to partying and different things. So I literally just decided, you know what, I'm going to give photography a go. It looks like something pretty cool. And I just went out and bought a camera. So that was a pretty random decision 10 years ago. And well, I just photography. I fell in love with the whole process, and I have been obsessed ever since. So um, I pretty much straight away signed up for a night course and ended up in university 2009 for 3 years. I moved over to England, studied, and then got married in 2012. My ambition, I suppose, was to be a fashion photographer. That's why part of the reason why I moved to England, and because there isn't very much of a business over here in fashion photography in Northern Ireland. So I thought I'll move over there and make it big time. And I met my wife, and then ended up coming home in 2012 because we were getting married, and I stumbled upon wedding photography in quite a random way, and I didn't think I would ever like it, but that was in 2012, and I have been just flat out working ever since and loving life. So, from 2012 onwards, I was supposed to start it slowly in a sense for maybe the first year, and then my wedding sort of took off. And I within 2 years I was shooting 60 weddings. Within 3 years I was shooting 70 weddings, and I kept that consistently for a couple of years. And now I'm sort of down a wee bit. So I've been very busy for the last 4 or 5 years. So that's it.
And there's been a transition as well as now where you're now also, in a training element. So that's obviously had an impact, on obviously the weddings because obviously you're now known for doing the talks like you are for us tonight and demonstrations and teaching. So that has definitely sort of come a long way with, the quality of your work as well, Stephen, mate. So, it speaks for itself really, pal.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something that I was absolutely terrified of at the start. I'm definitely not a very I'm not normally the most talkative person, or I'm not an anybody's face type person. So that was a struggle for me at the beginning, but that's something I actually really enjoy now.
Good.
And I get to work with awesome people and awesome companies. So yep, so good.
Brilliant. Right. Just before then, we give you the screen for your tips and tricks on marketing and Fundy. We do need to talk about the podcast. So I did promise that we talk about it tonight. So this is brand new, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, so it's been something I've been thinking about for a while, was starting my own podcast. There was multiple reasons for me starting it, but I was talking to a couple of people one day, and I kind of offloaded, and I ranted for. Do you know what it was? Actually, we were communicating, me and other people in a Facebook group, by taking videos of opinion and posting it. And I don't know how this ended up happening, but I ranted for about 15 minutes about something, and I thought, I've got information in here that I really want to share, and uh, that with I love listening to podcasts. I just thought I'm going to go for this here. So, yeah, I've just released the first episode there last week, and it's for photographers, for any sort of visual artist, really. We're interviewing photographers and well, any creative really, and it's really just somewhere you can listen to like-minded people and listen to good conversations. And
Excellent. Well, I didn't know about it until today, till you told me, so I'm
there's
happy to scream and shout about it. And I'm going to listen to it on my hour's drive home after tonight's presentation, mate. So unless it's longer than an hour, then
there you are.
I'll catch up with the rest tomorrow on my way into
Turn
work. So sorted. Brilliant. Right, mate.
absolutely
Let's
50 minutes. Turn it up quite loud, just in case you fall asleep.
Excellent. Right, let's give you the screen, my friend. So it's coming over to you now. There we go, Stephen Neeson. So it should tell you that I've made you the presenter and to show your screen, and then I can tell you that we can see everything nice and clear. There we go. I'm seeing you full screen, Stephen. I can hear you. So I'm going to go quiet. Feel free to ask me if there are any questions. I will interrupt if it's appropriate. And guys, any questions or queries you've got for Stephen or Natalie at Fundy, please pop them through the question panel. Stephen, it's all yours, mate.
Yeah, so the first thing I advise you to do is to think about who you are as a brand and essentially who your ideal customer is. And that that's a very important thing because your customer may not be someone like you. Your customer may be, you know, you could be consider yourself a middle class person. Your customer could be working class, or it could be the opposite way around. You may find that your customers are you want to work with people who are very like you. So for me, it's a very important thing is to try and work out, who your customers are. I believe sometimes this might take a bit of trial and error. I know it has done with me. It took me quite a wee bit of time, I suppose, to realise that I went through a spell of thinking I might want I want to work with higher end clients, and whenever I got there, I realised that I wasn't necessarily happy there, and I reverted back to the way I was. So there was a bit of a process for me changing my market and changing the ideal client and then moving back again. So if you can get an idea of who that ideal client is, then that's an awful good start. It's talked about a lot, but I believe it's so important for you to get a style that you're comfortable shooting in, a style that you understand, and that you're confident in. You'll be able to, if somebody asks you what is your style, you should be able to just say it off the cuff. It's not something you should need to think about. And again, that may be something that takes a wee bit of time. If you don't know what your style is, then get to work on it. Keep shooting. I didn't really know what a style of photography was really until I suppose other people started saying, "Oh, I love your style," or "I like how dramatic and romantic and cinematic it is," and that in a sense is how I found out what my style was. So yeah, I think just find out exactly who you are and who your customer is if you can. So a little bit just about my style of photography. I love what I would call as dramatic type photography. I use a lot of off-camera flash. I, do like different things with lighting, and I suppose I've just tried over the years to try and get my customers to recognise who I am and who my work is. And yes, I love this style of photography. I'm just going to flick through a couple. I love this style of photography, but ultimately I know that my clients do, and I know that they can recognise this. They recognise that it's me, and that's exactly where I want to be. So it's a distinctive style, especially around this area. There's not a lot of people would shoot in a similar style to me, and that's exactly what I want. So and this is I would call an evolving style that kind of changes, as time goes on. The same style goes through weddings and portraits. I try and keep as much consistency as possible, and the portraits that I do, again, I don't always shoot with off-camera flash, but there's a certain look I try and get, and I use light to my advantage. So I have my style pretty much nailed down at the minute. It took me a wee while to get there, but I feel like I'm there now, and that is a very powerful tool. It's a very powerful tool to use going forward in either a portrait or a wedding business. And in a sense, it takes some of the hard work away, and I'll explain a wee bit more about that later. So first things first, I have a thing in my head, I suppose, that I used to feel that I used to feel that a lot of my work was about me, and I quickly realised that my work has got nothing to do with me really, and that and my customers' eyes especially, they see me as somebody who is providing a service, and I very quickly realised that that is so true. I need to see myself as, in a sense, a servant to my customers, and I need to serve them as best that I can. I understand the purpose of why I'm in my business. What I'm doing on a daily basis isn't trying to make money. It's not the main goal of this isn't just to make loads of money and feel good and make more money and squeeze more out of customers, because you'll end up hitting a brick wall if that's the why behind what you're doing. So to me, I'm providing a service to customers. I'm providing them with the most important the images of the most important day of their life, or the most important sort of landmarks of their lives or their children's lives. And for me, part of what I do is, and it has always been, is to work as hard as I can, and provide the best pictures possible to grow in every shoot that I do. And I think that's a very important thing, is to have the mindset that every single day you go to work, you're going to come out the other end a better person, better at serving your customers and taking better pictures. And the reward of that is that I actually get paid, and I get paid for something that I love doing. Yes, we all want to make money. For me, I don't see it as something I should make my focus. I know people close to me that do that, and it's very evident in their daily lives. It's very evident in how they treat their customers, and I don't want to come across like that to my customers. So, it's very important that you know why you're doing something, and if you know why you're doing it and you know your purpose, it's so easy to come across the right way to your customer, your client. From day one, I've always been very strategic about how I get to where I want to be, and the simple reason for that is that it takes the struggle out of it. It means I'm not struggling day to day, and there's no labour. I don't come across to customers that I'm trying to squeeze money out or do different things. So I've always put some sort of a strategy in place. That strategy could be a turnover or your profits per year. But to me, if you're wanting to start a business, you either are in the position where you don't need to make a lot of money. Maybe you've already got savings or whatever. And I know people who are in this game, and they don't necessarily think about the money aspect of it at all. But for me, I'm the breadwinner in my house, and my wife is at home with the kids. I know I need to make a certain amount of money, to bring home at the end of the month. So for me, it's important to know my targets and what way I'm going to get those. So I've been very strategic from day one. Well, I suppose maybe the first year, I can't say I was for the first year. I just got a few weddings and that. But once I started taking it seriously, I had a strategy in place. And the simple way I done it, and I've come to realise that others would do this too, is I decided how much money I wanted to bring in through my business, in this 1 year. For you that might be £50,000, that might be £80,000, it might be the VAT threshold. You might want to smash it. It could be £1 million. I don't know. For tonight, I'm using an example of £50,000 turnover. And if you're a wedding photographer, you need to determine, roughly how many weddings do you think would be comfortable for you. If you're a working mother, that might be 10 or 20, or if you're like me, you might like up 60, 50, 60, 70 weddings. You need to, everybody knows how comfortable they would be doing that. If it's portrait sittings, it might be 20, 30 a week, or you might want to shoot 2 a week. So everybody's different, and that's something you need to have a good, strong think about. Otherwise, you could just take on far too much work, end up burnt out, and end up, sadly, I know somebody that's happened to, and they took on 60 weddings in their first year with a very cheap deal, and they ended up not in very good shape over the head of it. So there's something you really need to think about. I would say an average wedding photographer would shoot 30, 35 weddings a year, and I've just used £50,000 as a simple number here. So for me, if you're the other thing, you need to do is look at roughly what the average market is. This is going to be different if you're in a high-end market, or this is going to be different, depending on where you are in the country and different things. These figures I'm talking about today are just literal. They're average, probably average prices in Northern Ireland, and I know that might be different somewhere else. So you'll know the average price, which is an important thing in some ways. Everything I do on this is basically my starting price, and the reason why I have laid all this out is so that I can get people in. This is the least amount that I'm going to earn. So if I explain that a bit better, first of all, what I done was I tried to figure out how much per hour I would like to earn, and I found out how many hours it took me to shoot a wedding. And for example, now a wedding for me is 16 hours work, right from the very first email inquiry through to delivering the album. By the way, that used to be 25 hours, and I've reduced it down quite considerably. So for me, say 16 hours work and £60 per hour is £960. This is just me working out my pricing strategy. I put in a cost of album. Say the album and my starting price is £120. I times that by 360. Add in anything. There's things missing out of this, by the way, but say fuel, equipment. So if you take an average of say £5,000 a year spent on equipment divided by the amount of weddings you want to shoot, and my example there's been £5,000. So whenever I add all that up, it's coming in at roughly £1,500 per wedding and £1,200 profit. Now that's a great starting point for me. That for me is where I want to be able. That's the least I want to earn. So this is for me. This is what I start my prices at. Prices actually start pretty close to that. So that's just an example. So for me, that's how I want them to start. If somebody books me, I don't want them to spend any less. So that's the starting price that I would. Whenever you add this up, to me, that's the starting price you put on your website. And maybe you don't offer albums for me. I really would. It's an extra opportunity to make more money. But this is how I work out my pricing. And once you get to know that, when you have a starting price, so if you're new in this industry and if you haven't done a lot of jobs, my advice is try and get some jobs behind you first. There's many a way to do that. For me, it was shooting for family and friends and different things. But I'm just going to assume here that you've done some jobs. You've shot a few weddings, you've done a few portraits, whatever it is. So there's a lot of simple things in this, and for me, doing the best job possible is so important. And equally as important is for me being as efficient as possible, and that is efficient at replying to people, being efficient on the wedding day, turning up on time, not ripping it on the day and spending far too much time photographing them, being courteous with them, and just being a nice person, sort of living out the brand as such. I always sort of over deliver and less time that I'm expected to do it. And for me, on weddings especially, like the best thing you can do is to woo your clients in some shape or form and get them talking about you. And that really, really, really is one of the most important things, is to get people talking. In terms of wedding, if you shoot a wedding, you should be posting, and I say should, I'm being a hypocrite here because sometimes I don't do this myself, but the best way you want to get wedding work, you post some photographs from the wedding you just shot within 24 hours, or I would do the same in a portrait job. And the simple reason is people leave your shoot, leave the wedding with they want to see things, but they're also like they're sort of pumped up that they've been in for a shoot. They've on their wedding day, and especially on a wedding, these guys have had 100, 150 guests there. There's potential customers in that. They're still on a high after the wedding, and to me, they need to see them pretty much straight away. So this is on the wedding day. I do the best job I can and deliver a few photographs as quickly as I can. You've probably heard this before, but in photography, like I see, there's two different ways you can look at it. And if people don't know who you are, then you can present yourself to people and try and sell yourself to people, explain to them what you do, find customers. In a sense, it's like cold call them, but you're doing it with your work. And you have to, in a sense, lure people in, lure them in with a price or a promotion or some sort of a product. Or the other way to get people to you is to get people talking, get people to recommend you, and then you have somebody. If you have somebody contact you first and say, "I need wedding photography," or "I'm looking for a portrait session," then you're already half or 70% way there to getting a sale. Whereas if you're standing in front of a group of people trying to sell yourself, you're trying to pick people out that maybe want a photographer, maybe you're looking for somebody. But if you can get people to come to you, then it's such an easier sell. So for me, on weddings especially, the best thing you can do is get people to recommend you. And everybody thinks that is wedding customers. And yes, it is. Past clients, past customers, they are going to recommend you for sure if you do a good job. But what a lot of people miss actually is getting yourself known by other suppliers. And to me, the more people know who you are, the more people that see your work on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, the more people you present yourself to in the industry, should that be a cake supplier or a bridal shop or whatever, the more people you talk to, the more people you have to recommend you. But the 100% main thing is to give your clients something to talk about. Make sure they tell their friends, because if they're getting married, you rest assured they've got friends getting married soon, and if they go and talk about you, they're going to recommend you. So this is the way I done this at the beginning. So I work from a place called the Wedding Centre, and I have other businesses quite close to me, so I was able to do this in a sense quite easily. We have a quite unique marketing tool that we use each other to market each other, and we're pretty successful in doing that. But some people might see me being in a wedding centre in a complex and say, "Oh, it's easy for you to say. It's easy for you." But the simple reason behind this is, that we have to actively go out and push each other. People don't just walk in and book everything. Like there could be 10 businesses in with us. People don't just walk in and book everything. You have to take them people and recommend them to each other and use it that way. It's very, very, very important thing. So for me at the very beginning, I set the amount of weddings that I wanted to shoot out, and I went out to try and fill those. For the sake of this talk, we're talking 33 here. And for me, it's about, knowing, say you've shot 10 weddings this year, and you want to get to 20 next year, and maybe 30 the year after that. To me, you need to think this out. You need to think, of people as friends, as other suppliers, as literal people that are going to recommend you. So think about it in the way that, obviously we have our past clients. They're going to recommend because we've done an amazing job. If you think about it, who's the people on a wedding day that's going to get booked before you? Well, obviously a hotel or a venue is going to be somebody who's going to get booked before you. In fact, probably 99 times out of 100. Bands, believe it or not, get booked really quickly. Videographers is one that you'll get a bit of work from. And believe it or not, wedding car companies are booked a lot of the time before photographers, and that's, I don't know why that is, but I've recognised this from working with other wedding car suppliers. So if you don't know anybody that owns a wedding car business or a band or hotel, my advice to you is to go and start talking to them. And there's no simple way of typing in certain things in online and getting all these jobs. You have to go out and work really hard to get them. And these people who own these other companies are prime examples of people who can better your business, that can, you can create a working environment or a working relationship with, and ultimately come in with more bookings. So if you can list down 10 ways, 10 people, or 10 different ways that you could get 3 weddings from, well, you've more or less got there. And if you think about it in that way, it's a lot easier than what you think to get the amount of weddings you've done. I ended up shooting 75 weddings a year, and this is the exact strategy I took. I took the time to phone people and ask them how their wedding bookings are, and say, don't forget to send people over to me. I can give you a 10% discount, or any of my customers, create something that they can tell them. For example, we had a checkbook system between 12 suppliers, and the first person who took the wedding booking, so say a couple came and booked with me, what I done was I explained to these couple, now, and we have an amazing voucher system going here. Because you've booked me today, or because if you book me today, I can give you a voucher book which has £1,200 worth, or £1,000, I think it was, worth of vouchers off other businesses. You don't get any discount with myself, but every single other person you book is going to give you discount if you go to them. And we had such a successful couple of years whenever we were doing that. So, I maybe got somebody come and said, I've got this checkbook, we got it from the wedding car company. Can I book yourself, and all the rest of it. So that's just one idea. We as photographers are creative people, and I believe that everybody on this earth is a creative person, and I mean that in terms of they're creative in their own right. And you need to be creative about how you're going to get these weddings, or how you're going to get these portraits booked in. And that's, to me, that's the only way of doing it. And sometimes it's creative, but sometimes there's a bit of simplicity and just a bit of hard work involved. Pick up the phone, get to know people. If you meet people out in a wedding, share some images with them. Follow up maybe with a small print or a frame. I've got wedding showrooms here in Northern Ireland that have my work on their walls, because I took the time to. Some people might think I'm mad, but one place in particular, I spent about £200 framing big pictures and putting my name on them. And to me, they're up in their showroom, and my logo's on them. And even if the client doesn't see it, the people who work there are going, that's going to be a reminder. Oh, hey, there's Stephen Neeson. I can recommend him. So, if you get to know all these people, keep in with them, befriend them, and that's a strategy that will work 100%. I have a group of other photographers that recommend me, and I also recommend them, and that is, to be honest, one of the most powerful things. There's at least 3 other photographers who would recommend me on a regular, and I'm talking about a weekly basis, and I do the same for them. So if I have a wedding inquiry and I'm not available, the first thing I do is say, I'm so sorry, we don't have any availability for you here, but check out this person's work. They're an amazing professional photographer. They would do a brilliant job for you. And go and speak to them. And by the way, tell them that I sent you. And that gives them a wee incentive. I am not the most active person on social media, and I'm a very busy person. I've got two businesses, and I just feel sometimes maybe my social presence lacks a wee bit. But in a sense, what I've just talked about there, I practice what I preached, and that works for me. yes, you can put amazing social strategies in and get work. Facebook advertising, paying for the advertising, Google and different things. I know that works. That could be one avenue for you that could get you 3 or 4 weddings a year amongst all the other ones. And it's the same for portrait work. You want to get to know people, maybe not necessarily people who are in that industry, but for example, if you're a pet photographer, why not make yourself known to animal shelters? Make yourself known to people who are working with, pets on a daily basis. Pet shops, why don't you set up in there, once in a while and get to know the people that's coming in through? There's loads and loads of ways of meeting people in a similar industry to get talking to potential clients. So, are we doing okay so far? All good? I hope you're all.
Yeah, you're all good, mate.
Hope
Sorry,
all yeah.
I couldn't get to my
all
mute.
good.
Yeah, all good. I got some questions for you, but I'm going to hang on to them for a minute.
No worries at all. No problem at all. So, so this is a very important part for me. Once I get an inquiry in through my website or through Facebook or whatever it happens to be, the first or second line that I write is, please can, thank you so much for the inquiry. It would be so awesome if, I'm free in your day or whatever first. It would be so awesome if we could meet face to face. Is there any chance that you can come in and talk to me? And for me, getting them in, face to face is the most important part. It means that I can sell to them. It means, I have a strategy. As soon as they come in, I talk to them, get a connection. I try and create some emotion. That could be showing a video, that could be talking about the emotional side of, photography, which I know that, Fundy software, push because they believe in it so much that, it's such an important thing. You're providing memories for people, not only for now, for short term, but for long term. And whenever, 30, 40 years time, there is a sad and emotional element to photography. I have no problem talking about that. I have no problem trying to make them happy. And you see, I just realized something one day: if you can create an emotional connection between you and the client, it's so easy to sell to them. So for me, at that point, I sell. They've come in on my starting price. They know what it is. Say, for example, it's £1,500. For me, that's whenever I need to sell more. That's whenever I need to show them my best work. Start from a high sale, a high selling album. Maybe something that's a more, I don't know, you could have different pricing strategy. You could have a £2,000 add-on for an album and try and sell that first and then work your way down. But for me, that's the best strategy. Whenever you get them in person, I could literally talk about that all day. So I'm jumping sort of back and forth here a wee bit. After the wedding, I don't sell a lot. I don't do a hard sell. If you want to call it that, my hard sell is before the actual wedding. And the reason for that is because I outline to my customers that this is what you're getting, this is what you can expect. And anything after that is a very soft sale. Anything after that is to do with the album, to do with cards, or to do with wall art or things like that. And my sort of strategy has always been, shoot more weddings type thing. I know you can get people back in face to face and use this in an amazing way. We use Fundy software in our portrait studio for in-person sales. But in my wedding business, I use Fundy software to actually sell to people quite softly afterwards. And most of it is done online, to be honest. I, design the album, I send over different things and get them talking. And what I mean is, I'm going to have to I'm going to bring up Fundy software here just to show you exactly what I mean. So before we come on, I just imported some photographs from a wedding that I shot. Somebody who had just sent me over some of their photographs. So that after the wedding, the process for me is to try and close the wedding and as efficiently as possible. I have made everything out in my business to try and get faster. So in terms of designing the album, my album design process is very, very quickly. are very, very quick. I use Graphic Studio myself for albums. I'm just going to show you exactly my process of jumping in, picking the album that I'm just about to design, picking the cover, and I'll just write test here for today. And the first thing I do is design the album and then send it over to them. I literally do this in minutes. If there's a couple of different ways of doing this. If you want to maximize your profits, I would suggest designing more pages than what they've paid for and try and subtly get that over to them. This person here has picked 70 photographs. I could just design a 70-page album, or I could, take it upon my liberty to say, the album was flowing so much better when I added these extra 20 photographs. Feel free to remove them, or if you want, we can, it's £30 for a side. You want to add them on, you can. So the process of me designing this album is literal minutes. So to me, an album a few years ago would have been 3 hours, 4 hours work at least, whereas now, honestly, it's 5, 10, 15 minutes, just depends. I can design an album in 5 minutes. In fact, last Thursday evening, I had an album appointment. Somebody wanted to come in face to face to do it, and about 10 minutes before they come in, I realized, oh my days, I have not designed this album. And I downloaded the picked photographs of my client gallery really quickly and designed the album in Fundy software. Within about 10 minutes, the client was sitting in front of me and I was showing them the album. So that just shows you how fast it is. So as you know, it's such a simple process, little drag and drop. There's an easy way of designing these albums. For me, I group together all photographs that are for each page type thing, and then I use the auto feature and design the album just in seconds. So for time purposes, I'm just not going to design an album for you now. I want to show you the 3 things that I do when I'm sending over an album. So the album itself, you can see, is just so easy to design. I'll just give you an example there. Say there's 3 pictures you want on the page. It's a little drag and drop, and then flick through the pages, pick the design that you want, and then move on to the next page. You can use the auto design feature, design the whole 30 or 40 or 50 page album in seconds, and it does an amazing job. But the other thing I want to show to you very quickly is I just take the liberty to go in to the gallery here and design a couple of wall art collections for my clients. And this is something I do quite regularly. I'll just pick a room view here in Fundy software. We'll go with this one just for the crack. And I'll pick a couple of 3 or 4 of their photographs. One of my collections I actually don't have it set on this computer. One of the collections I have has a landscape photograph and 2 portraits. And I design this in Fundy software. It's normally a frame, to be honest. I will design it up really quickly. It's a 30 by 20, a 30 by 20 print and a frame print in the middle, and then a 220 by 16 prints at either side, framed. And it's a lovely collection. I add a frame onto that. For example, I'll just do that here now. And whatever frames you use, you can use them here. I'm just going to do this really quickly here. And I export this along with the album and maybe give them 2 or 3 choices and tell them, if you are considering wall art, these are what I recommend. As a professional opinion, I would put, this photograph in the middle. This is your, to me, the best photograph I took on the day, and why not complement it with a portrait of the bride on the left and the groom on the right, and try and sell it that way. And I'll give 2 or 3 options like that over. And if you're doing this with people, the chances are they're going to come back and say, at the end of the day, these people probably just haven't thought about this. It's just something you need to. There's no hard sell. It's a suggestion, and if they can see that, they might think, you know what? Well, actually, that's really nice. We have like fresh wall space here. Let's go for it. And the other thing to do, and you have to do this within a month of the wedding for sure, is take the liberty of designing them a couple of thank you cards, or if it's coming up to Christmas, you could design a thank you card. But I do this for the thank you cards. I'm just going to write test in here again. And in Fundy, you've got all these different design features here, all the presets, pre-designed templates, sorry. I'm just going to click on this one. Such a simple process. I really don't spend too much time in this. You can pick your favorite. It may be this one, it may be a different one. You may want to change the font. But the thing about this is this whole process, designing the album, sending them a card design, and sending them over some wall art examples is a 15 or 20-minute job. I send this over to them. I just send it over and then try and arrange to get to talk to them as soon as possible. You could screen share this and sell online. It's just, there's so much you can do here. For me, this is what works for me. This is what works for how much time I have. And it's just I'm all about making things as fast as possible in my business. I know not everybody's like that, but I've got everything streamlined down to as less time as possible, less time as I need. So, as I said a wee minute ago, I could literally talk about hours about this stuff. Yes, Jay, is there any questions on what I've talked about?
Yes, mate, I've got some questions for you. So let's stay in Fundy. I don't think we'll need it, but there's a few things that in case we've got there, so you've got it to hand in case you want to show anything. They're not in any particular order, Stephen, so just bear with me. So I'll run through them very quickly. Just firstly, looking at the photography, this was quite early on in one of the questions when you were showing off your images at the beginning. Post-processing, do you use any particular software? They felt, somebody said, it looked a little bit like Nick software?
So I do sometimes, and so my process really is Lightroom first of all, then I would use I try to use Lightroom only for the first stage of my edit. Whenever I'm finalizing the wedding album, say there's 70 photographs for that, then I will go in a wee bit deeper of an edit. And yes, sometimes I would use Nick software, but for the most of my work, and some people are quite surprised at this, it's usually just Lightroom. So for me, Photoshop takes too much time, and Lightroom is a quick and easy process for me. So I have a preset that I just made up myself. I put that on at the import stage, and it's just like, you wouldn't really believe how quick I edit and how quick a process it is, really.
Brilliant. I think you did touch on it, and maybe we missed on it, but when we were talking about the pricing structure at the beginning, and you said we based it on £1,500, that included the album, though, right?
Yeah, so that was just a figure I popped out of my head. That could, for somebody else, that could be £10,000. Yep.
What's the typical wedding package for you then, Stephen? Is it your time and an album, and then everything else is an add-on?
Yeah. So my time, my typical, or my starting package is really for my time and for my starting album. That starting album cost me just about £100.
Yeah.
So that's how I get people in. My goal whenever they're in front of me in the office is to sell one of my luxury albums, which could be £700 to £1,000 extra.
Of course, yeah, brilliant. I mean, I think you touched on it as well, and several of the guest speakers over the last few months, and obviously with the way we talk about it now as well, especially with the wedding photography, and you did touch on the portrait photography as well, is that we're now to an extent having to re-educate the client because they had got sort of lost in this digital world. But when we started showing them the physical product again and the wall art that you've touched on, I don't think it's a hard sell anymore. People just think it's a hard sell or easy just to give them all their images on a disc. But I think the tangible
Yeah.
back, I think you'd agree that, I touched on it I was doing a one-to-one business guru today, earlier on today, and they were saying how they wanted to get away. They're a new client to the experience. They wanted to get away from the digital. They wanted the tangible product back. And I just touched on the fact that last Christmas, as we're coming up to this Christmas, no pun for George Michael or anything like that, but last Christmas, I said to my mum every year, what do you want for Christmas, mum? Please tell me what you want. I don't want to buy you rubbish anymore. And she said, Jay, I've got all these amazing images of the family and the grandchildren and this, that, and that. They're all either on a disc or they're on sticks. And I'd really like some albums, some photo books. And I made 5 photo books. Honestly, mate, I mean, they were nice. They were good quality. But her face on Christmas Day, and when I go around, she looks at them, and I think
Yeah, absolutely.
it's absolutely back with portraiture and weddings, the physical product, and having these designer tools that we can so easily now show great quality. I mean, even the wall art facility from Fundy is phenomenal. Yeah. And like you said, yes, it's great if you can do face to face, but having these tools for online sales is an absolute game changer. And it's expensive to create preview albums and sample albums and stuff like that. But being able to show somebody an album from a venue that they're having their wedding at digitally is an amazing sales tool that can be done in seconds, as you said, or 10 minutes with Fundy. So some brilliant tools.
It really is, and the good thing about Fundy software has the online album proofer, and for me, rather than saying something, I get the odd person, have you ever shot a wedding at my venue? Could you share with me one of your galleries? So they've obviously talked with other photographers and know that there's a gallery, and they're maybe seen blog posts of people, and I don't point them toward my gallery. I just send them a link to somebody else's album.
Yeah.
And the simple reason is on the online album proofer that Fundy Designer has, whenever they click on a page, it flicks over like a book.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And they're getting that experience straight off.
Yeah, and they can physically start to envisage their album, isn't it? And it's another soft. Well, it's not soft. It's a hard selling tool, but it's a soft one in their mind. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
excellent. Right, so I've done that one. Let's click that one off before I ask it again. How many final images do you think you probably produce on average for a wedding, Stephen?
So the first edit that I do, I would say, and this changes, anywhere between 550 and 900 images, and they are all just quickly edited in Lightroom. Like there's a maximum 3-hour editing process to do that. So it changes wedding to wedding, but I would say an average 6,700.
Brilliant. Okay. You mentioned that you shoot quite a lot of off-camera flash for your style. What particular do you use a particular lighting system on your weddings, mate?
Yeah, so I've used Photox for about 4 or 5 years now. My main flash that I've always had was an Indra 500, and now I have the Juno flashes, the Photox Juno flashes, and I usually only use one. I used to use more, but it's as much. I try and keep a light camera bag now and as little equipment as possible. Part of the reason why I moved to Sony mirrorless, and I just have 2 cameras and 1 flash on me at all times.
Brilliant. How long typically do you try and get with the bride and groom during the day?
So that changes slightly, but I would say on average 45 minutes to an hour for family photographs, for bridal party, and for the couple. I would say my average is probably close to an hour. So typically I've got between 20 and 30 minutes with the bride and groom, 10 and 15 minutes with the bridal party, and 10 and 15 minutes for family.
Brilliant.
It's a quick process.
I think you touched on this already, but let's just ask it because Julie's asked it. With the album design, is that typically shown to them online, or are they coming in to see it? I know you mentioned the proofer.
Yeah, I show all mine online. I have two businesses, and one I shoot the photography, and the other I don't shoot the photography. With my business, I don't meet the clients face to face normally after the very first meeting. But with my other business, I have other photographer that works for me. I changed it, and it's been running for about a year and a half now, and we are trying. I'm basically sampling the other way, so they do meet face to face. It's a lower starting price initially, and try to sell afterwards. Do you know what? It's just two different ways of working. So
Sure.
I don't meet them face to face. I use Fundy basically online, whereas my other business does, and it does in person. To be honest, I can make the online work pretty well.
Brilliant. So you mentioned that you're doing around, was it 600 to 700 images finished or edited for the wedding? Was that about right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that would be for a full day.
Do you have a rough number of images that normally an estimate or approximation that go into an album in the end, Stephen?
Yeah, so my initial sale to them, if they just pick my standard package, then they'll have 30 sides. If they, I try and pre-sell the pages in the very first meeting, so they could have bought an upgraded album with 60 pages or 80 pages. If they have done that, I typically don't try and add anything on, but if they have just taken one of the lower packages, I would say you have 30 pages, try and pick 60 photographs. If you pick more than that, don't worry. Just let me design the album. It might mean purchasing a few extra pages, but you can pick as many as you want. That's basically the strategy for that. But on average, I would say my customers put around between 70 and 80 photographs into every album.
Brilliant. There's a couple of things that I picked up on and a few people picked up on, which I thought was brilliant. I mean, in your presentation, it's so easy to rely on social media these days, and it does work. But you're business to business. We've been teaching that for a long time, and it is really, really important. So I'm really glad you brought that up because I didn't know what you were going to talk about until later on this afternoon. So that's something that we talk about a lot. So I thought that was really, really good advice. And the wall art, it's a fantastic additional spend now, and with using the Fundy tools and the thank you cards, it's just a no-brainer because there's no time.
Yeah, it really is.
There's no time involved. They've made it no time thanks to Fundy. That it is. Again, good profit and a fantastic tool. I made a note here, Stephen. This was something that came up with me in some of our teachings over the last few months, and I wondered your thoughts, really. Because I know you've got a really good working ethic. I don't know if it's the same. I'm sure it's the same in Northern Ireland as it is over here in the UK and in Wales. We're finding a lot of people now getting married, and there's not such a thing as a wedding list anymore because a lot of people have already got a home and all of everything that they need. And we're finding here there's a bit of a trend where they're suggesting that people pay towards their photography or their honeymoons and things like that. And I was wondering what you thought about the idea. I mentioned it in a conversation to somebody the other week about like the wall art edition, that it could be suggested, well, you could put this out as as your wedding list rather than or things towards your photography package. I wondered what your thoughts were on that. Telling the guests, we've often sold vouchers towards. In the past we've sold vouchers towards their wedding packages, but whether that was, what your thoughts were about buying something quite specific, maybe for the bride and groom.
Yeah, so that's not something I have a lot of experience with, to be honest. It's not something that I have used very much. Somebody brought it up to me before, and I hadn't heard of it at that time. But we have a client, or sorry, we have another supplier who works closely with us that does wedding gift services. And I was actually talking to him about 3 weeks ago, and mentioned to him that I could put additional things into his list. So they specialize in wedding gift lists, and I had thought if I was to put items into yours and give you commission, would that work? And he had said absolutely. And to be honest, I haven't followed it through. In a sense, I could do more of it myself, but to me, taking a wee bit of work out of it was using somebody else. Do you know what I mean? So it's something I think could be very, very successful. Northern Ireland, and some people may argue with this, is slightly behind on certain things. And we normally, I say, you know, the market's different over here in different things, but I would say, well, things travel fast, yes, but there's a very traditional type of person over here that hasn't seemed to change in the last number of years, and a lot of those are who my customer is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that'll change anytime soon. You know,
It came.
it's
The
definitely worth
idea.
exploring.
The idea came to me, and I mentioned it to Mark. My best friend got married 3 years ago now, and they had everything. They had a home. They had everything they needed in the house. And his wife just said, "Look, we would like either vouchers or pay towards our photography package or our honeymoon." And it wasn't the biggest wedding in the world, but they actually had a £2,000 photography package paid for, and the
Hmm.
best part of a safari holiday to Africa paid for by the guests.
Yeah,
Rather
yeah.
than buying the candlestick holders that they didn't want, or the pots and pans that they didn't need, and I just thought, well, it's away from your standard package, your profit, but it's all addition, it's all bonus then, isn't it?
Yeah,
And an easy then possible upgrade for the bride and groom who wanted the £2,000 package, but could only maybe thought they could afford the £1,500 package. So brilliant, mate. I
yeah.
think we're almost there, pal. Well, I don't. I think the answer is yes, but I mentioned it earlier. Steve's a different Steve has asked, do you do any mentoring or for wedding photographers? Obviously, the experience does, if that's what you want to talk to me about. But what about you, Stephen, in Northern Ireland? Are you doing any mentoring there, or courses, or workshops?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do one-to-one mentoring. It's not something that I advertise because, you know, I would only, whenever I say I do it, it's just every now and again. I do workshops probably more so. I enjoy doing that quite a lot. I like I like doing one-to-one face-to-face, to be honest, more than anything else. And workshops, I do them every couple of months. My next workshop in Northern Ireland will be with a photographer called Rashida Keenan, and we are doing that at the end of February, I believe. We're just about to launch it.
Brilliant. So obviously, get in touch with. You can get in touch with Stephen directly through social media or so on. Or if you're interested in the experience group, drop me a line here on the business mentoring program that I do. Stephen, before we go, I've got to say, please thank Stephen for tonight's presentation. I've also spent the day with him, which was great, from Eric. So you've had Eric with you on your workshop today, I think, and he's been online with us
Yeah,
tonight.
that's right. I done an off-camera flash workshop today, and Eric was on it. Thanks so much.
He said at the beginning he had a great day with you, but also now he's come into the night with you, so he feels like he's your brother, I think, by the looks of things there, mate. So,
Yeah, absolutely. He's a nice guy.
Excellent. Right, I'm going to take the screen back so we can remind people, just as we finish off, let's remind them, obviously, Stephen, your new podcast. So episode 1 is available now from podbean.com and can be found on the Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's live on there right now.
Excellent, brilliant. And I'm gonna look it up now and see if I can get it working in the car for my hours drive back home. So if I can do another hour with you, Stephen, I think I can just about manage it, mate. To be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent, guys. If you haven't done so already, look, you've got to try Fundy, and you don't have to pay for it up front. Try the free trial. It's a full working demo. You just can't proof out from it until you pay for it. So go and give it a go. It's such a game changer. It will change your business, and I promise you, it's one of the best tools available for whether you're a wedding photographer, a portrait photographer, any type of, it applies to all your businesses. It will definitely change and speed up the time. Stephen's talked tonight about a lot about time. We know how much time is valuable to us, not just in our family lives, but our business lives, and it will save it and give you more time to be shooting and ultimately making more money or getting your life family balance back. If nothing else, it's brilliant. And if you want to, you can save $100 off any Fundy suite using the code TPA 2019. That link's in the chat panel, and you will get all of these links again tomorrow in a reminder email from us. And as we talked about earlier, the great Fundy community on Facebook, The Storyteller, official Fundy designer group /groups/Fundy story. Try again, Fundy storyteller on the Facebook.com. It's a great community. We're all in there, so you can get chatting, get talking, and there's great advice and tips on that. And as I said about us at the beginning, if you haven't checked it out, go and check out the Academy Free Big Photo magazine. All the back issues are there. Gets updated at the end of every month, new issues. The next one looks amazing, but this one, the Extreme Sport one, they've all been great, but it is some splendid images in there. So get involved with us on that. That's it for tonight. Thanks you all for joining us. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night,
All the
everybody.
best.